Good morning. It's Thursday, the 29th of October. Our top story is that the second wave of coronavirus is at a critical stage. This, according to experts, after a major study found that nearly 100,000 people in England are becoming infected every day.
Scientists at Imperial College London are warning that action taken so far to contain the virus isn't enough. Our science correspondent, Palab Ghosh, has this report.
Let's talk to our political correspondent.
France is to begin a second national lockdown tomorrow as the number of infections surge.
People will only be allowed to leave their homes for work, essential shopping, exercise or emergencies. Here's more from our Paris correspondent, Lucy Williamson. The German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, has said that the country will enter a 4-week lockdown from next week. Nottinghamshire is to become the latest region of England to enter the highest coronavirus alert level. The changes come into effect tomorrow. 11 minutes past 6 is the time. Let's talk to Carol, find out what's happening with the weather. Oh, that's not a very, very enlightening picture. Well, encouraging picture, should I say.
Thank you. Pleasure.
13 minutes past 6. Let's take a look at the paper.
A little earlier on.
Have you ever been scared of prawns?
Not really.
You might want to be. These prawns have been found in Panama.
Is it The Exorcist?
It's The Exorcist, isn't it?
It's in one of the horror films.
It is a very, very bendy person. Anyway, he's in India and he hopes to get into the Guinness World Records, but good luck to him. That is good. That is a lot of yoga practice, isn't it?
It certainly is. Let's see, time now is 18 minutes past 6.
Choosing a secondary school, a big decision for any parent and their children. But this year it's going to be more difficult because open evenings aren't allowed.
It's meant to rise in the virtual school tour and promotional video, ranging from slick, highly produced films to something a bit more basic. But how much do they really tell you? Roman Jaffries has this report.
I just remember being so daunted going around big school, as I used to see it, before checking that. But actually, all I wanted to do was go to the same school as my friends.
Yeah, but it's such a big decision, isn't it? And in the absence of doing all the things you would normally have done, makes it extra hard. I love that. It was a young girl, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The things that you didn't like about the films you'd just seen, and she said sometimes you think they're lying.
I like that.
As in that's the film the school has made to encourage you to go, and if the child's reaction is they might be lying, that's not working, is it? Something's wrong.
She's figured out PR, hasn't she, already? Good on her. 22 minutes past 6. You know, so much has happened in the past year. Can you believe that 1 year ago today, the 2019 general election was called?
We've returned to 2 traditional Labour seats swung towards the Conservatives to ask voters how they feel about how they voted then and what's happened since. Alex Forsyth has this report. Hello, this is Breakfast with Naga Munchetty and Charlie State.
Good morning. Time is 6:32. All the latest news and sport in a moment. Also on Breakfast this morning. The German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, said the country will enter a 4-week lockdown from next week. The artist Tracy Emin has revealed she was diagnosed. 25 to 7 is the time. It means it's time for our regular appointment with a Breakfast GP.
Yes, and that means this morning.
It is 6:41. Good morning to you. So we talk about Marcus Rashford off the pitch, don't we? A lot. A real lot. Holly.
See, time now is 6:46. That means it's time to have a look at the weather. Carol's got all the details for us right now.
Looking lovely there, Carol. Morning. Do you know what? It was just because I was looking at the back of Charlie's head before looking at you, and I just had his. Carol, would you?
Never a Naga, Florence.
See you later.
Let's see, time now is 6:49. Let's cast our eyes to the US elections now. It is, of course, days to go, and President Donald Trump has been doing his best to win over women who live in the suburbs, whose support could prove to be crucial come Election Day. Now,
his appeals have ranged from openly begging them for their support to promising to get their husbands back to work. Is it working? Sophie Long has more.
Now to get the news, travel and the weather where you are.
The German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, said the country will enter a 4-week lockdown from next week. 2 British teenagers have died and another's been injured after a parasailing accident on holiday in Greece. The relatives of a Kurdish Iranian family who died when their migrant boat sank in the English Channel on Tuesday say they're desperate for news about the youngest child. The Bodies of Rasul Iran Nijad and Shiva Mohammed Panihi and 2 of their children have been found.
But their 15-month-old boy remains missing. Let's go to our correspondent, Nick.
12 minutes past 7 is the time. Let's talk to Carol. Now, Carol, morning to you. Now the nights are drawing in. It feels as if the weather is really chopping and changing.
Well, Naga, you're kind of right, yes.
Good. OK. Carol, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Did you say Charlie again?
I don't know what it is. I think because you're in my eye line. Oh, look, she is laughing.
It's early in the morning, isn't it, Carol? Is it 7:15? It's early.
I'm so sorry.
We're very similar, though,
Yes,
Charlie and myself.
yes.
We look very alike.
Yes, yes.
Carol, we will be back with you a little bit later on. Of course, all the sport, all the business as well coming up a little later on. Time now, it's 14 minutes past 7.
We've got 2 hours to get it right. The whole of Nottinghamshire will become the latest area in England to be put under the highest tier of coronavirus restrictions from tomorrow. The county joins large parts of northern England and the Midlands in Tier 3. Just coming up to 7:45, we need to get an update on what's happening in the sport, and there have been goals. There's nothing true. There's nothing saintly about that. Trust me. Thanks, Holly.
She's listening in somewhere. Where
At
is
least I
she?
got your
There you
name
are, Carol.
right. Well,
Very much. We'll see you later on.
see ya.
Pleasure.
Over the last few months, we've been following the story of 6-year-old Tony, who has raised almost £1.5 million for the hospital, which saved his life when he was a baby.
So during lockdown, Tony walked 10 kilometres on his prosthetic legs and crutches in just 30 days, and now, quite rightly, has been awarded a Pride of Britain Award for his fundraising. Let's have a look at him in action.
I mean, he must have just been in awe, I bet.
He was, absolutely.
Go now. He's done enough of the sitting, and he's hopping around in the background. Brilliant.
Quite right, too. Well, listen, you and your family, Paula, I mean, you're giving a lot of people a lot of inspiration in difficult times.
So take care.
Thank
And
you.
bye to Tony, of course.
He's gone. Bye. Can you say bye, Tony?
Oh, there he is.
Bye.
The most
I hate to bring politics into this, but do you know what? I think Tony's rivaling some of the politicians we have on the programme sometimes for our little... Do you know what? There you go. But I respect that. I absolutely respect that. Why? You know, what do you want to... What
if
has
he
got
doesn't want to
say?
talk, he doesn't have to
He's
talk.
a man who speaks with actions rather than words.
And when necessary. Hello, thank you, goodbye. That's all we needed. That was Tony with Mum Paula as well. Headlines are coming up. We'll see you shortly.
Good morning. It's Thursday, the 29th of October. Our top story today. The second wave of coronavirus is at a critical stage. That's according to experts after a major study found that nearly 100,000 people in England are becoming infected every day.
Scientists at Imperial College London estimate the number of people infected is now doubling every 9 days and are warning that action taken so far to contain the virus isn't enough. Nottinghamshire is the latest area in England to be put under the highest restrictions.
City of Nottingham and some surrounding areas had been expecting to face more stringent restrictions from today, but after a 24-hour delay, the entire county will now move into Tier 3, that is from tomorrow.
Dan Johnson is our reporter. A report into the Labour Party's handling of accusations of anti-Semitism in the party is being published this morning.
Time now is 10 minutes past 8. Let's have a look at the weather. Carol's there for us this morning. Do you know what? This time of year, Carol, I'm looking at that rain behind you. You know, when you look at the forecast, not necessarily your... That thing where it says
Maybe.
90% chance of rain. Oh,
Yes.
that feeling.
I know.
Have I just learnt something? That any number in the black circle is just the measure of the gust.
Technical
Gustometer.
equipment to do that.
Gustometer.
Yeah,
A
that's what you use.
gustometer.
Well, you can
It's a
use,
well-known-
You can use an. You can use
I think
it as well.
gustometer
Measure
sounds
the wind.
better. I very rarely agree with Charlie, but it does, doesn't it?
For a second, I thought Carol said you can use an animal.
Animal. Yeah, or something like that.
But it wasn't that, so we're okay.
We're all right.
Anemometer.
Yeah,
Yes,
no animals
we
are
know.
harmed in the creation of the
13
forecast.
minutes past 8 is the time now.
Now, choosing a secondary school, it's a big decision for any parent and their children. But this year, it's becoming more difficult. Open evenings, for example, aren't allowed.
It has meant a rise in the virtual school tour and promotional videos ranging from slick, highly produced films to something a bit more basic. But how much do they really tell you? Branwen Jeffries has been having a look.
Let's talk to Jeff Barton, who's the General Secretary of the Estate.
Really interesting, just 12 months ago. Just listening to those voices and hearing what people are saying now.
Yeah. And they're keeping an eye on things as well. It is 28 minutes past 8. Find out what's happening wherever you are this morning. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Hello, this is Breakfast with Naga Munchetty and Charlie State.
Good morning to you. Just after 8:30. Now, After Breakfast on BBC One is Morning Live with Kim and Gethin.
And they can...
8:32. A record number of redundancy notices were issued in September, a month which also saw tougher restrictions for businesses and a winding down, of course, of the government's job support scheme.
Something Vishal is having a look at for us this... Let's see, time now is 8:38. From the hapless market trader Del Boy to long-suffering grand villain open all hours, the actor Sir David Jason has brought us some of the best-loved characters in British television.
In his new book, Sir David reflects on life at 80 and offers some wisdom in difficult times.
We'll be speaking in just a moment. First, though, let's see one of the most memorable scenes that's been on telly basically ever. It works every time, doesn't it? I'm delighted to spend. Lovely to see you this morning. We were just, everyone enjoying that moment from Only Fools and Horses. Do you know what? The number of times I've seen that, and the more I see it, the more I think, how is it that Trigger, and I'm sorry, I forget the actor's name, how is it he managed...
I do appreciated it, because I do wonder, it's almost like a calling card, isn't it? That sometimes I wonder, you've done so many things and have been in so many brilliant programmes, I wonder if sometimes you can just feel, I'm not...
Your book is an absolute delight, and one of the reasons is because you reflect a little bit on things, on your own life, and sort of where you came from and where you got to. And there's a wonderful moment that I've never heard you talk about before. So you're a trainee electrician, you're like 20 years old, and there's a moment in the book where you describe driving around with your mate on the back of a job, and you go, I think you're driving past Buckingham Palace.
Did. Far beyond my capabilities, I'm afraid. But it was a dream.
Oh, well, I mean, you've got to have them. And I think, you work hard enough. I think that's one of the things that runs through the book is hard work. And it doesn't always come, the things you want don't always come quickly. And I was really fascinated with Only Fools and Horses, when John Sullivan, and this is the way things work, isn't it, in TV, or used to at least, handed you the script in the lift at the BBC in the days where you used to kind of just meet people around, and there were two things that happened with Only Fools and Horses that I think that was really interesting. One, you weren't necessarily in mind to play Del Boy. And two, the success of it, even though now we're so familiar with all of it, the success of it came from repeat.
Referring to there was that you were possibly going to play Grandad. Is that right?
Well,
you make reference. You were talking a little earlier about working hard, and you have worked very hard all your life. Prolific. And I think at one point you say you're the fourth hardest working actor in Britain.
What about the contrast then of being the fourth hardest working actor in the UK pre-lockdown to then lockdown, and you coming up with ideas using Trigger's broom for social distance?
Right at the beginning of the book, you do that thing. I don't know if many people do it these days. You say, "When I look in the mirror, what do I see?" And what is it that you see, David, when you look in the mirror these days?
About the progression of years and everything. One of the stories that really charmed me was your grapefruit plant, which went from a seed that nearly choked you.
You talk to the tree. Do you talk to the tree?
We're now going to be inundated with viewers
Definitely.
who will have grapefruit plant tips. One of the other things I found really amusing was that, and don't take this the wrong way, but I wouldn't have thought of you as someone who is mega conscious about their waistline, simply because you don't have to be, obviously. But Darling Buds of May, one of the things that I took away from your experience in Darling Buds of May was all the food and learning about...
It's a good point. You make a very good point, but I was thinking maybe as you stepped out of the helicopter.
well, they're very good.
You see, it can be done, David, it can be done. Do you ever, because you're 80 now, which you make very clear in the book, and this you've had a very subdued birthday, and I won't ask you where you went because you refused to say where you went for your birthday with your wife and daughter because you don't want to reveal the restaurant because you're being selfish about it, basically. But when you have your test for the helicopter licence, I know, do you ever get that feeling, when you're having that test? Because you obviously want to keep flying. Do you ever get that nervous feeling?
Jose, it's a perfect time for us to end. David, it's been a delight talking to you this morning. Really love so much detail in it. It's great. Lovely to see you. Thank you.
Oh, it's like being invited into his living room, wasn't it? Having a cosy chat.
Del of a Life, the book.
Yeah,
Del of a Life.
that's the David's book. You're watching Breakfast. 8:59's the time.